The teams are both even at the moment, more or less. Soviet side's got more players though, but in terms of ground targets destroyed, it's 4 versus 4. Going to start in the north. What plane am I going to fly? This is a late war Bodenplatte scenario, so... Oh, not necessarily. This might be a mixture of aircraft. Yeah, it is. What's it? What is it? Poland. Okay, it's the Bodenplatte map is what I meant, but it's Poland in this scenario. I'll take an A8 F8 most probably. What about this? What about like this? A single 1000 might be useful in certain circumstances. Three 250s. 3 250s. 3 times 250. And only 500 rounds of cannon. One here, so that's actually, it's a lot harder to operate with that. And you don't have the machine guns up here. So you're kind of underarmed in terms of cannon. But that's quite a punch right there. Alright, that's what I'll take. What's the temperature? 17. I like this skin the best. Well, not the best, but it's one of my favourites. This kind of, how this is. Right. Right, so almost without further ado, where am I going? I guess I'll go to the tank column. And down here there's 3 targets. I'll try and finish off. I'll try and do as much work on this tank column as I can. Am I taking the right loadout? Pretty much. Alright, let's go. 3 grid squares to get across to get to the target. It's about 4 or 5 minutes worth of flying. Heavily outnumbered now. Must destroy tank column. Hope you guys are enjoying your weekend. Alright, that's a bit better. Don't know how I fixed that exactly, but I... How best to take on these tanks? I don't know, but I think I'm going to climb right now. Maybe not too much, but I just want some energy when I'm diving on the target so that I'm going fast enough that if there is flak there, I'll see the flak shooting, but the flak won't be able to hit me, and I'll be able to turn around and hit it. Whereas if I go in on the deck, I won't have enough energy to maneuver successfully to not get hit by flak. But being up this high, my plane is more visible to any enemy aircraft, so I might get shot down on the way. Those are the factors that one has to juggle when deciding how to attack a ground target. About a third of the way there. There should be tanks and there should be trucks, including flak trucks, which I really have to watch out for. Alright, I think I see the road. Yeah, it's a road and a train. Road to the right hand side when it takes a turn. When it takes a turn into the town over there, that's where... just before the turn. Alright, I've got it. What's that? That's a barrage balloon. As long as I don't get shot down on the way, I should have enough energy to get in. I see them. They haven't even been touched. There's a whole row of them. It's like 7 vehicles there, and they're behind the trees. I'm going to go in there and basically fairly well, I don't know. What I'll do is I'll flank them and I'll hit them from the flank so I can see what I'm looking at. Freaking hell, why am I sitting so low in the cockpit? That's better. Right, here goes nothing. They haven't been hit at all. I've got to pick it. Ideally, I've got to pick a tank to attack. Full power. I see a plane shadow. There's a tank. It's the last vehicle too, and it's a tank. That was very close. Slightly too short. It's in the splash damage zone. No, hey, I destroyed it. I destroyed it. Haha. I was going to say it's a very good hit, and it was. What about that other plane though? Where is he? I don't even know what I'm looking at down here. Where are they? Hey, there. Recon cut. Pull out. I'm still at full power. Again, this area hasn't been attacked at all by us. Freaking incompetent, man. And there is a plane around here. It looks like a Spitfire. It's a LA5. Why hasn't it attacked yet? I don't know. I'm going to have to reduce power. Very soon. Go. Got to shut the cow. That's 250, number 2. I'm going to have to reduce that power. Yeah, that was a good hit. Tank number 3 coming up. 3 for 3. You're not getting out of that one. Yeah, was that the current one? All right, where's the enemy? Someone said northern vehicle column, 2 bogies destroyed. Hopefully someone just helped me out. What else? All right. Always with the tail coming up. There was a 109 there, but it didn't spot that LA5. Anyways, I did a good sortie there. 3 tanks destroyed. Three T-34s destroyed and 1 recon vehicle destroyed, which is classed as light armor. 3 T-34s, man, that's one of my best results ever, and I did it with that configuration of 3 250 kilogram bombs. It was very effective. I'll do that all the time. I just have to go back there and do what? There's nothing much there in my opinion. Should I take these again? I probably should. I'm thinking of going back just with cannons though, but I mean, yeah, no, I'll take the bombs anyway. There could be tanks there that I'm missing that I haven't seen, so they could be there, but I just haven't seen them. So if I go there with cannon and then I find there's tanks there that I haven't seen, then it's like, oh, you know, should have taken some bombs. Whereas if I take bombs and there's no tanks there, there's going to be something there that I can drop the bombs on, be it recon cars, trucks, whatever. And I'm surprised that there was no flak. I wonder what the reason for that was. Maybe the fighter that was up there had shot the flak. Shit, there's 6 reds at the tanks. Alright, here goes nothing. One thing I find I see a lot of planes doing this is when they go to attack an enemy position, they get there, they might shoot one thing, and then the enemy shows up, so they stop attacking the ground and they start dogfighting the enemy, and then they get shot down eventually. And the end result of their ground attack sortie is they destroyed one thing or no thing. The better way to do it is that you get there, you start destroying stuff on the ground, you start really scrutinising the ground everywhere and looking around on the ground and trying to make an impression upon yourself about what the ground looks like, where the targets are, where the flak is, all this kind of stuff. And the enemy comes in and they're trying to attack you, and so you're ground attacking while the enemy's trying to attack you. And you don't break off and fight the enemy, you keep attacking the ground, and you take out 3 or 4 or 5 targets. And opportunistically, while you're doing that, you take a shot at the enemy. Sometimes you can bring him down. And then when all's said and done, you've destroyed a lot of targets on the ground, you've actually moved the needle, you've actually progressed your team. If you just fly to the target, and then you fight the enemy over the target, but you never attack the target, you never win. You never win the map. So there's quite a big difference between those two approaches. And what is really starting to what's really starting to annoy me is I see like there'll be a fighter hovering over an enemy target and it'll just stay there. Or it's more likely it's hovering over your defense targets, but increasingly as well you see them hovering over an enemy target, and instead of attacking the target they just hover over the top of it saying, oh yes, I'm waiting for the bombers to show up. And my message is, dude, you're the bomber, there's no bombers. The buck stops with you. You're the one that has to attack the target, especially if you're over the top of it. Attack. Oh, but I'm not a bomber. Have you got cannon? Oh yeah, but I'm waiting for the fighters to show up. Well, while you're waiting for the fighters to show up, fly down to the ground with your cannons and shoot a truck. At least do that for me. Preferably a truck that's got flak on it. preferably a truck that's got machine guns on it. Shoot that, and then you will have done something useful. Particularly the Axis, they spend a lot of their time, like probably 80% of their time, flying around doing nothing, like not fighting the enemy in the air and not doing ground attack especially. Whereas ironically, if they focused on ground attack, 60% of the time they'd be doing ground attack, and the other 40% they'd be fighting in air-to-air combat. Because you can't do ground attack without air-to-air combat. You're always getting embroiled in some crazy stuff. So if you want air-to-air combat, do ground attack. It solves both problems. Holy moly, there's a bunch of planes over. Damn it. That's the end of the mission. Well, anyways, in 15 minutes I destroyed 4 tanks basically. And what did anyone else destroy? Someone destroyed a truck. Someone destroyed a truck. And someone destroyed a truck. And, okay, so yeah. Someone over here destroyed 14 trucks. So I hope you guys are doing very well. I want to remind you, if you're not already cognizant of the fact that shit is about to hit the fan. So if you don't have a store of fresh water that you can drink that doesn't come out of the tap, maybe you should do something about that now. Same with food. If you don't have stored food, do something about it now. You might not be in a position immediately to do something in that direction, or at least not a complete solution. Like you may not have the ability now to get yourself 4 years worth of stored food and water. Heck, I'm certainly in that situation. I'm not in the position to do that. I wish I was, and I will be soon, but not yet. But the hour is late, my friends. The hour is late. Alright, so here's probably an early war scenario. What am I up against? I-16, the usual planes. Alright, let's see if we can win for once. I mean, Axis has the better planes. They have the planes with the higher tonnage of bombs, the greater amount of cannon, the greater amount of rounds of ammunition, higher speeds, everything. They still the Axis team can still not win. It can't win. It's ridiculous. It's down to the players. And frankly, I'm getting sick of flying on the Axis side because of just I'm fed up with the ineptitude of the players. And I like to play on the underdog side though, which is the Axis side at this point. I want to start flying the IL-2s because I mean, this is an iconic ground attack aircraft. I want to start flying this one. But I really wish I could be on a few wins on the Axis side just to see that they've actually figured it out and then go on to the other side. So it's not a complete cakewalk. It's not completely easy to defeat them when I jump on the IL-2. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I could take a Stuka, but I mean, so slow. What can you carry with a Stuka? Why would you take a Stuka when you can take a Ju-88? That's my question. If you need to pinpoint a tank, this would probably be the way to do it. Oh yeah, you got your BKs. What about bombs though? 1,000 kilo, that's pretty... 3 250s, the same as the FW I was just flying. 1 500 and 250s. Whoa, 1 500 and 2 250s. That's pretty good. You could, assuming you can be accurate with your Stuka, then you can probably destroy 3 tanks with that, provided that the flak has already been destroyed. Alright, so anyways, I'm not going to fly this plane just now. What am I going to... well, maybe I don't know. F4? F2 Yabo? F2 E7? E7? Which plane should I fly? Quick, quick, make a decision. F2 Yabo? F4? E7? I like the E7. It's a consummate dogfighter. I'll take a 250. I'll take the 20mm instead of the 15. Armoured windscreen. Nah. Reduce the fuel. Not that much. Not that much. Yeah, I'll go for 220. Alright, so what's the temperature? November 41, -0, 0 degrees. I don't think it's going to be snowing, is it? But whatever. I just... someone said you can see out the window. You can only just though, that's not snowing. Alright, good. Where's the one with the chicken? There we go. That's a rooster. Alright, good, good, and good. Let's go. What am I going to hit? Train or ships? Probably ships, I don't know. Just take off straight ahead. Which one's closer? Probably the train. I can skip bomb the ships real good with this though. I'll do the ships. I'll definitely do the ships. Those ships, I seem to remember they're in a river or a very narrow lake, a very narrow body of water, like sort of like a big wide river, not as wide as the what's the river that Stalingrad's on? Not as wide as that river, but yeah. So skip bombing. The point I'm making is skip bombing might be difficult in such a narrow body of water. Let's go 90 degrees. So the goal really is to destroy flak. Destroy flak and then go back in a heavy and destroy the main targets. Nothing else I can really do but that. I can call on the rest of the team to take action, but I'm not expecting them to do anything based on previous history. It just sounded like the bomb dropped, but I didn't press B. Frickin' hell, man, it dropped. Why did it drop? I must have pressed B. I'll still keep going, but that's a down. Alright, I can see my ships over there. I suppose if they're under attack I can go and try and save them. What am I going to do with the enemy ships without a bomb? I can only shoot at them. What good is that? I think I can destroy the flak on top of the ships. Not exactly sure about that. I wonder if I can destroy the flak on top of the enemy ships. There they are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 of them. Someone else is on their way to the ships. Okay, that's good. I think they just... I'm not exactly sure. I think they just asked me a question, but because they didn't address me when they wrote it in the chat, I have no freaking clue of knowing if they're actually talking to me or not. Our ships our ships destroyed. Are you kidding me? They've destroyed our ships already. Just like that. Does this ship have flak? I don't think so. Nah. What about... There's a defense ship, maybe? This one here is the only defense ship. Let's see. Yeah, I think this has got flak on it. Let's get it. Front and back. It's a steamer. Boom, I got that flak. Alright, that's something. Alright, we've got a 110 attacking one of the ships here. Let's see how he goes. It looks good. It looks pretty good. It was slightly short. It was dropped slightly short. And it's no good. And the second one. No good. It's got someone on its tail. Oh, if only I got under that bridge. It's been a bit silly. Oh well. So after all that, one plane and one heavy... I thought I destroyed 2 heavy weapons. See it, mate. So did you see what happened? That 110, from what I saw, dropped on 2 ships and missed both of them. Alright, so consequently the ships are still there. Alright, so what am I going back in to destroy the ships? There's 7 of them. I'll have to take an 88, won't I? What can I take with an E, with a 110? What, 500s and 450s. That's 2 ships you could destroy and maybe a third one or a fourth one. But if you take an 88, what about 6 250s and 28 50s? That's going to do it for sure. For sure. Alright, I've got the right amount of fuel. I've got a plenty good bomb load for destroying 7 ships. Just have to not get shot down by those enemies and I'll be all good. Oh well, I know there's no flak there now, so provided there's no enemies, I'll destroy the target. Alright, we're all set. We're on our way. It's going to be a fairly long journey in this plane, but what can you do? As I get there, I'm trying to decide what to do. Am I going to climb? Am I going to dive in fast? How best to do this? Usually for skip bombing you need some speed. It works best with speed. Which would imply climbing so you can dive down. Or I could just go for direct hits. By the way, this is a dive bomber. It has dive brakes and everything. What's the quickest way to take out 7 ships? I have 6 250s, so those are the way to go. And then you got your, whatever it is, 28 50s in the hold, in the bomb bay. But what's the best way to deploy them? You can't really do level bombing, it's not the right way. So you can either dive bomb or you can skip bomb. Or you can just do neither of those, just conventional at a steep angle, last minute, drop, pull up, and try and preserve your energy and go up and turn around and go again onto the next one. All of those are effective. Dive bombing's a bit extreme with such a heavy load. Like if you just got a few externals that you can do dive bombing like that, but you won't break the aircraft because it's strong, but you don't want to be trying to pull out with a full bomb bay full of weight, because it's hard to pull out in that configuration. You're more likely to hit the water. I want to go higher, but there's no time. So this is the altitude that I'll fly out. Hopefully I don't get spotted. 30 players and no cover. Pathetic. Absolutely pathetic. On the upside, it looks like I destroyed something. Right, about halfway there. Maybe I should get a squadron together. I've resisted forming a squadron for so long because they're usually pretty cringe. But I mean, like I said in a previous stream recently, I'm going to probably stop making flight sim content fairly soon. Most probably that's going to happen in the next, I don't know, 3 weeks to a month or so. So what's the point of forming a squadron? Like, have you ever seen Benny Hill? Have you ever seen Benny Hill? Benny Hill was a comedian, I think, from the 70s or the 60s and 70s, and you know, 80s and 90s and probably 2000s. Benny Hill, legend. So, like, when I watch other Axis players in ground attack, usually it reminds me of a sketch from Benny Hill. like it just it's absurd. It's absurd. It's like Benny Hill is like sort of like, I don't know how you describe it, like tongue-in-cheek slapstick kind of semi-raunchy comedy, but I don't mean the raunchy part, but like the slapstick kind of, I don't know, it's like the Three Stooges or something. Like, yeah, Axis ground attack is like a sketch out of a Benny Hill, an episode of Benny Hill, the TV show. See that, Axis? That's how you freaking do it, and don't you forget it. Who was shooting at me, for goodness sakes? The other possibility is that people are watching my stream, so as soon as I arrive at a target, someone will be there to intercept. I don't know. I'm flying in a fighter now. I wish I was flying in a Ju-88 because there's no enemy here. Like some things that I've seen Axis ground attackers do is you finally somehow get them to come with you to the target, and just say the target's a train station and it's got a train and some other stuff like buildings and that, and you get in there and you destroy the train, and then you start to attack all the buildings around the train, and then finally the others roll up and then they start to attack the train even though the train's already been destroyed by you a minute before. And they don't think to look, or they just don't know the difference between a train that's destroyed and a train that's not destroyed, so they keep attacking the same target over and over again. And often you'll get multiple successive waves of players coming in and attacking a freaking destroyed train over and over again. And it's like, guys, I destroyed the train freaking 5 minutes ago. Hit the warehouses. Hit the platform, hit the warehouses, hit the trucks. Anything but the train. Yeah, I know it says train, but look at the actual train, it's destroyed, yeah? And that's if they manage to get there. That's an I-16 there by the looks of it. A MiG-3. MiG-3. It's got him. In the bomber, if I'm flying by myself, no escort, and if someone is stream sniping me from watching the stream, it's possible, then one way to deal with that is simply to pre-plan the flight and never look at the map and never announce where you're going. And so you know which direction to fly once you take off to get to the target, and then you never look at the map, so that anyone watching the stream is going to have a harder time knowing what target you're heading for in the bomber. I'll do that next and we'll see how we go. It's not foolproof, but at least it's a measure that one can take. We have 3 positions left. So I'm switching my strategy. And instead of announcing to everybody, I'm going here, I'm going there, I'm just going to do my thing. I'm not going to announce it. I'm definitely going somewhere, but hey, look, I've asked the guys for an escort multiple times. None of them has come to the party, so it's time to stop announcing. Because like I said, the enemy players could be watching the stream. Look, even if they watch it, it's unlikely that they're going to stream snipe me, because most people aren't dicks like that. But it is possible. So the way to do it now is to not announce where I'm going and not to show the map. It's not perfect, but it's something. Highly recommend you guys check out my website. It's froggyfrog9000.com. Obviously there's a lot of crazy stuff going on out there, and every day just about I'm putting videos on there that are chronicling all of the things that we're seeing happening in the current era. Right, I mean, of course I could be shot down on the way, right? But other than that, we've got a long way to go till we get to the target, which shall remain unnamed at this stage. If you've been watching since the beginning, you've probably got a pretty good idea what it is. Anyway. So let me talk about a few things about the current era. So it's pretty obvious to me that the Western world and the world at large really, but particularly the West, has descended into totalitarianism. And that should be to you completely unacceptable. It should not be acceptable to you. You shouldn't accept it. You should identify it. You should acknowledge its presence, and then you should reject it. 100% reject it. The reason why I say you should acknowledge its presence is because if you don't acknowledge that you're living under totalitarian tyranny, then you can't reject something that you haven't acknowledged the existence of yet. It's a bit like a broken leg or something. If you have a broken bone and you never acknowledge that you have a broken bone, you'll never fix it. So, I mean, this whole thing starts and ends really with psychology and in the mind. They say that the war of the, what century are we in? 21st century? Is the mind. They say that the battlefield and the war for the 21st century is the mind. The mind. The most studied thing on the face of the planet in the whole history of planet Earth is the human brain, the human mind. It's been studied. Billions and trillions of dollars have been put into studying the human brain. And that's the battlefield. Your mind is the battlefield. And your perception and that kind of thing. Perception, of course, is reality. So keep in mind, no pun intended, that your mind is the battlefield. I think Alex Jones's motto for a while there, probably still is, I don't know, was there's a war on for your mind. It's truer than you know. It's truer than you know. There's something like I said earlier in another stream, there's two schools of thought. One is don't scare people, because if they get scared, I don't know what, they can't compute or something, they have a malfunction. The other point of view is make sure people know what's going on. Knowledge is power. If you know what's going on, it should stop you from being scared. It should be the antidote to fear. It should make you feel better that you're informed. So two of the biggest problems I can see that are aiding the totalitarianism is infantilism. And you could call that arrested development as well. And there's the other one is victim consciousness. Infantilism and victim consciousness. Infantilism is basically where the state takes on the role as the parent, the big daddy, and the citizen, the man or the woman, takes on the role as the infant. Okay, so the citizen is the infant, and the state is the big daddy, the parent. These two things are really bad. If you don't know of their existence, and if you don't know that they're bad, then you can't reject them from your mind. 2 ships. It only took the entire map and we've already lost it. Crazy. So yeah, infantilism and victim consciousness. You should identify those things, know what they are, and make sure that you don't subscribe to them in any way, shape or form. It's hard to perhaps succinctly describe these things. I'll give you an example though. In Australia now, in a lot of states, there's no way for selling or buying a car or for selling or buying a house where if you've got a car and I've got money, that I can just buy the car from you and you get the money and I get the car, sort of thing. Instead, the state has to get involved. And under the guise of protecting the buyer, always the guise of protecting the buyer from the seller, as though the seller was bad or something. There's always some form of intervention from the state in every transaction of a big ticket item like a car or a house, whereby some kind of a form with some kind of a name has to be achieved, or a permit rather. A permit has to be achieved by the seller in order to be eligible to sell their car or to sell their house. And usually the permit costs money, but it's not about the cost, it's not about the money, it's not that they're trying to make money from you per se, it's that they're trying to, the policy, the current policy of states in the West is to on purpose, infantilize the population. And one way of doing that is to remove the ability to choose and to have danger in your choices by giving you a safety net that you perhaps didn't ask for. I'm gonna do a few more flights because I haven't finished talking, but that was a shitty map. I think I can actually achieve some results here, but it'll have to be completely solo because everyone else is incompetent, and it'll have to be flown as though it's solo. I'm not going to try and encourage others to come with me. I'm going to fly completely how I used to fly, my old school method of flying, which is you know you're flying solo. It's really the opposite of infantilism. You've got to rely on yourself only. So with the idea of buying a car in Australia now, so if like in America you've got Craigslist, right? So in Australia we've got Gumtree. If you're selling a car on Gumtree, you'll get a bunch of buyers, potential buyers, contacting you going, have you got a form XYZ? Have you got a form XYZ? Hey, I'm interested in your car. Have you got a form XYZ? Hey, nice car. Have you got a form XYZ? Just wondering if you've got a form XYZ. All the fucking discourse that you have to do with selling your car is, hey man, have you got that form? Have you got that special form? And what it is that you need this form in order to sell your car. And that is an example of the state intervention into what is normally a pretty routine interaction between a buyer and a seller. It's completely unnecessary, but it's a policy that shapes your behavior. It turns you into an infant. It says, don't worry, if anything goes wrong, Big Daddy's going to step in and save you. There's a safety net. Everything's okay. We're here to look after you. But it's fucking bullshit. It's infantilism. It goes along with totalitarianism. You should reject it completely. Out of your life. not that specific example, but on principle, you should reject coercive forces that would seek to turn you into an adult with arrested development, an infantilized adult. And honestly, what I've just described there, I think most people, I don't know, can most people understand that? Can most people comprehend that concept? A3. So you see what's going on there in that dynamic. The seller's the bad man, the buyer's the infant, the child, and the state that intervenes is the parent. Just see what that is? That is one of the key aspects of totalitarianism. If you take a step back to the beginning of America, for example, it was raw, complete freedom of interaction. So if you had a horse and cart and I had some dollars and you wanted to sell your horse and cart, I could buy it from you at a price. We had a meeting of the minds. We both agreed on the price. One party gets the money, the other party gets the horse and cart. Done. It's done. And here's the thing. Someone might have got ripped off, but do you know what? If they were not having victim consciousness, and if they were not acting as though Big Daddy's going to come and save me if I make the wrong choice, they would be really careful with their decisions. Their decisions would be spot on every time, and they'd always get a good deal. So these are the kind of differences between a freedom-orientated person and a person that's infantilized. Infantilized, turned into an infant, where the state's their daddy. All right, so yeah, consider that for a minute. Which negative 23. I'll probably keep this one. Why is this so important? So it's really important. You must be able to make your own decisions in your own life. By all means, comply with any kind of rules and regulations and laws in your country, but your spirit ought to be one of self-sufficiency. You ought to have the spirit of autonomy and self-sufficiency. Does that make sense? Right, so I'll go for this fortified area to the north. I'll destroy the flak and I'll go back in a... Or will I? I'm not going to say. So yeah, I can't stress enough that these form XYZs to sell a car or to sell a house. In the Western world, they simply didn't exist up until fairly recently. It's probably in the last 20 years, maybe even in the last 5 years, that these things have come in. They're a noticeable policy shift and they affect your life. They're a psychological impact on you. If you're not careful, they will march you down the garden path into learned helplessness, infantilism, not being able to make a decision for yourself, always relying on someone else to make a decision for you, and therefore giving up your freedom and your autonomy to allow someone else to make your decisions for you. As the Christians often say, the devil has a plan for you. If you don't have a plan for you, then you're probably going to become susceptible to the devil's plan for you. I can't stress enough to you that you're an adult, right? And the state, as it currently is, wants you to regard yourself as a helpless infant, a tiny little baby that cannot make decisions for itself and requires somebody else to make all the decisions for it. It can't feed itself. It cannot decide yay or nay on certain things, like, I don't know, anything at all. Your medical stuff, whatever. The idea is that you should have no choice in anything that you do. And that, of course, is really part of totalitarianism. You should reject it on principle. And always try and be self-reliant, because a lot of these things are not, they're coercive, right? So they're not something that you have to do necessarily. A lot of these things, a lot of them are there for, quote unquote, for your convenience. So it's for you to have convenience, right? But if you just always take the convenient route, you're going to be marched where they're marching you. They're going to march you in a certain direction. And in the aggregate, if this is happening to hundreds of millions of people in the Western world, if they're being marched in a certain direction, a direction of being an infant, having learned helplessness, and being, quote-unquote, the victim, everybody's the victim, that's a recipe for disaster. It really is a recipe for disaster. If I can suggest to you an image of who you should be someone like in the beginning of the United States, like a pioneer or a pilgrim, like the Davy Crockett. If you know what Davy Crockett looks like, the image of Davy Crockett is sort of an outdoorsman who was completely self-sufficient, self-reliant. You should be something like Davy Crockett, if not in appearance, certainly in your heart. I'm not really talking about specifics here at all. I'm talking about the ethos, the attitude, the ethics, the values that you have. They ought to be something like Davy Crockett. Freedom orientated, responsibility orientated, taking responsibility for your own decisions. Being prepared to take the bad results from a bad decision. Can you handle that? Can you handle making a bad decision, taking the bad results from the bad decision, and not complaining about it to somebody? Not picking up the phone and going, "Oh, Big Daddy, come and save me, come and make all my decisions for me." How self-reliant can you be? That's the question you should be asking yourself. Whoa, look at that. There's an aisle 2 back there. Let's get him. Again, heavily outnumbered. One thing that you'll need basically to stay human, to stay free and to survive is you'll need to ditch the victim consciousness, and you'll need to ditch the notion of you being an infant and the state being your parent. No one's your parent. You're the only one that's responsible for you is you. The guy or gal that's staring you in the mirror, that's it. That's all you've got. No one else is coming to save you. Plenty of people will tell you, oh yeah, this entity or that, this department or this government or this whatever, this program or whatever it is going to help you. You should, so there's no shortage. There's no shortage of propaganda telling you that there's all this support for you. My point of view is you should reject all that on principle, and you should regard yourself as totally without support in the world, and that the only one that you're relying on for your support is the guy or the gal staring you back in the mirror. That's the attitude that you should have. That's the Davy Crockett attitude, and that's the attitude that you should have. If all the hundreds of millions of people in the West have that attitude, it's going to be very hard for totalitarianism to take root. It's already taken root, but it's going to be harder for it to progress if you are 100% self-reliant. And I want to stress this, I don't just mean that you've got 3.5 years worth of food stored away. Yeah, that's a type of self-reliance. I'm really talking about something different though. I'm talking about your attitude. Guys, what's your attitude? what is your attitude? You might not have even considered your attitude in the framework of infantilism, learned helplessness, victim consciousness. You might not have considered it in that framework. Trust me, although there's a lot of bad stuff happening, and possibly even happening to you or to me, you don't want to regard yourself as a victim. You really don't want to regard yourself as a victim. I apologise, my phone just ran out of batteries. So, sometimes it's hard to kind of. Sometimes here's a philosophical catch-22. You can give people the evidence that led you to form an opinion. It takes time though. It might take you an hour just to explain one thing, or you can just give them the too long didn't read. You can give them the bottom line. You can give them the conclusion. I think this. And you don't have the time though to go into detail why you think it. One of those things is the Christian concept of the devil. Most people don't ever think about the devil. Most people don't want to either. It's a scary subject. But the biggest thing I would say is just apathy. People don't think that the devil exists. All right, so. That's all well and good, but I'm going to talk about the devil nonetheless, as though the devil exists, all right? So there is a body of knowledge in Christianity on the devil. Right, so Christianity has a lot to say about the devil. I would assume that the most authoritative codified knowledge on the devil would be the Bible. So Christianity has a thing or two to say about the devil. It's written down, it's been there for thousands of years in the Bible. It's nothing new. It's old knowledge, and it comes with a whole lot of wisdom, I think. So here's some of the things about the devil, and I think you'll see that it ties in exactly to what I've been talking about. So we're talking about victim consciousness, right? So it's known that the devil is a victim. At least the devil regards himself or itself as a victim. All right, so victim consciousness comes from somewhere. It has an origin, and the origin is the devil. The devil regards himself as a victim, kicked out of heaven by God, and angry that he's not allowed to be back in heaven. That's the devil, the victim, the number one victim, or in terms of how he regards himself, is the devil. So. Just consider that when you've got a whole bunch of governments and institutions and corporations encouraging you via propaganda to be the victim. Be the victim. Jump on the victim hierarchy. The higher up the victim hierarchy you get, the the more valid you are in the new society. Be the victim. Don't forget, though, the original victim, kicked out of heaven, was the devil. It's a tough concept to articulate to people that have never heard it before. I'm not saying if something bad happens to you, don't just ignore it. I'm not saying that. But victim consciousness, you might not even realize that you have it, or if you've seen it in someone, you might be able to identify it. I know personally one family member that I completely broke off contact with, largely because of narcissism, has victim consciousness, like complete victim consciousness, like pathological victim consciousness, to the point where if you point out how they've transgressed against you, or if you point out how they've done wrong by you, they won't accept it at all. They'll never accept it. And not only that, get this, they will then turn around and try and paint you as aggressing against them for the reason that you questioned their victim status. So victim consciousness is pathological in the devil, and I would say in narcissists as well. So be very careful if you question the victim identity of a narcissist, because they'll try and attack you as a result, as a punishment. So you can see then that it's pathological for narcissists, at least. It's not something that you can just logic them, you can just rationally help them out of it. They must be at all times the victim. Our whole culture in the West is victim culture right now, victim consciousness. Alright, so to not be a victim in today's culture, you're kind of swimming against the current of the river. You're trying to swim up a river instead of going with the flow. Why should you do that if it's so hard? Well, because the hard road is actually the easy road. Getting on board with victim consciousness, it doesn't have an optimal outcome for your life. You don't want to do that. You don't want to regard yourself as a victim. Bad shit's going to happen to every one of us. Nonetheless, try and be self-sufficient. Try and make your own decisions. Try and live with the results of the decisions that you make and not blame someone else for them. And try and be that image of Davy Crockett, totally self-reliant. It's going to help you. It's always been helpful to have those attitudes and values, but in particular in the time that we're in now, that's going to help you. That's really going to help you be as self-reliant as you possibly can. No petrol, no problem. No car, no problem. No supermarket, no problem. No money, no problem. No friends, no family, no problem. Bad health, I can deal with it. This is the kind of mentality that you want to have. It's the I can solve any problem mentality. It's the MacGyver mentality. That's who you want to be in your outlook on life. Don't be a victim. Do not be a victim. And like I said earlier, it's not so much about you're self-reliant, as in you've got like, I don't know, a couple of years worth of food stored up or something. That's good, but I'm talking about your attitude, your ethos, your values, your ethics. That's where it starts. So I guess what I'm saying is the foundation for your self-reliance is your attitude. It's very coercive and corrupting in this day and age that there's so much on offer to help you, to ease you into the role of victim. There's so many myriad of ways in society that you can be helped to be fitted into the role of victim. The kind of people that I really like in this day and age is self-reliant people. Self-reliant people, in my opinion, are worth their weight in gold. Sid. Mark 11, dude, man, you're spamming up the chat quite a bit there, man. You better not have written anything saucy. I'm just checking the chat for the first time. HOAs, that's homeowners associations, right? Yeah. Here we call them body corporate or strata corporations. They're freaking shit, man. They're completely ridiculous. So we have kind of like a triangulation in Western society today of narcissism, victim consciousness, infantilism, and big daddy government. That's more like a septagon or some shit. But you know what I mean? Like there's this trifecta of different factors right now. That's a perfect storm of narcissism in the West. It's a spectacle. Yeah, if you're gonna, I'm not giving you advice. If you're gonna buy a house or whatever, don't bloody buy in a HOA. Steer clear of HOAs or body corporates. You can't avoid it, I guess, if you're buying an apartment, because that's how apartments operate. But man, they're shit. You really just want to get yourself a house free and clear away from any of that kind of stuff. Short in the last, 5 or 10 years, getting worse closer to today's date. I've seen things in Australia that I've never ever seen before in my life here. It is really getting crazy here. It's an unhinged society right now. This is the kind of society where you can expect, unless you have a big fence out the front of your place, you can expect a kind of a Karen inspector in a council vehicle to stop at the front of your house and walk onto your property and start barking questions at you and threatening to fine you for long grass or loud noise or mowing your lawn on the wrong day or any freaking thing, anything at all. Because you see, I can fine you if you don't X, Y, Z. So we got Karens, we got narcissists, we got body corporates and HOAs, we got fines Fines coming out the wazoo. This is not normal, guys. This is not normal, and it's what we're immersed in right now. And part of the victim consciousness and the infantilism is the notion that you can't have a proper opinion because you're not an expert. You must be an expert to have a valid, proper opinion on matters to do with your life that are important. If you're not an expert, you cannot have a proper, weighty, valid opinion on things. That's not true, of course, but that's the prevailing attitude in the West today. You must be an expert or you cannot have an opinion, even on such things as your health and your children. This is not normal. Really, this is totalitarianism, is what it is. And you should have an honest look at what's in your heart. Because if you've got victim consciousness, that's not going to serve you the best. Self-reliance, attitudes and values, that's what's going to serve you the best. So again, it's good to have stored food or whatever, but it starts with a foundation of having the right attitudes and the right values. Forget who's the number one victim. Who's the number one victim? It starts with D. The devil. The devil is the number one victim. And that's not me saying that. That's out of Christian body of knowledge on that particular topic. It's a well-known concept in Christianity that the devil is the number one victim. Not truly, but in the attitude of the devil, he's the number one victim because he got kicked out of heaven unfairly, according to him. So keep that in mind. Victim consciousness, its origin is evil. And don't get me wrong, I have to differentiate, I guess, for the autists. I'm not saying that if something bad happened to you and you are a genuine victim, that you should just ignore it. That's not it at all. But, if the way you can identify it is if you know someone that just simply cannot let go of being a victim, and it's been decades or years or whatever, and it's looking like pathological victimhood, that's the devil right there. That's narcissism right there. Someone who must be the victim, someone who insists on being the victim. That's victim consciousness right there. So there's a difference there, and I think you guys can get that. Like just go back to the example again of buying a car or selling a car. At this point in time, the state will encourage the buyer to regard themselves as a potential victim from the get-go by having some kind of a form that the seller has to fill out and probably has to pay money for to initiate the potential ability to sell the car. Where's the damn target? And it's something like, I don't know, it's basically something that the seller is saying that the car is good. And so then I almost said the victim, the buyer buys the car, and then they have an opportunity, thanks to that form, to complain to Big Daddy about the seller if the car doesn't meet their expectations. So it's very litigious, isn't it? It's an opportunity to complain about a decision that they made to buy something. And so that's an example of systematic victim consciousness in the West right now. It also applies to real estate. You got your cooling off periods and you've got all these things. So there's never just anymore a simple transaction, buyer, seller, done. It's always an opportunity for a victim to complain to Big Daddy about how they're the victim. And this is on purpose. It's to make as many victims as possible. Not really, but in their own heart and in their own mind, they are the victim. That's the goal of that policy. And so far it's working a treat. We've got hundreds of millions of quote-unquote victims in the West. It's a curious thing, but the best way for someone in a divorce situation, particularly a female, to win is to play the victim. You could say to aggressively be the victim. You could say that in the divorce scenario, the best way to win a divorce is to aggressively be the victim, or to aggressively attack the other party with your victimhood, with your victim status. I'm the victim. No, I'm the victim. No, I'm the victim. No, I'm the victim. I'm the bigger victim. No, I am. I'm the bigger victim. And so it goes. You're not the victim. I'm the victim. No, you're not the victim. I'm the victim. That's victim consciousness. So I would say that the world is in for some kind of a cataclysm right now. We had World War I, we had the Depression, 1929, when I think a lot of people were finding it hard to put food on the table. Economics was so bad. Then we had World War II, and all the shit before that and all the shit that came after that. So there's been a lot of strife in history. And it seemed like, particularly from sort of 1990 onwards, it seemed like things were just mellow and things were great. And now it seems like all the bad days are coming back to the world. It's quite possible we're on the verge of some kind of a cataclysm, probably a multifaceted cataclysm. And it's going to help you, if that's the case, to not regard yourself as a victim. Because you'll be more resourceful, more self-reliant, more able to solve problems, more able to get yourself out of a jam. Think Davy Crockett, think MacGyver. Same here in the States, very Marxist, all of it. Yeah, totally, man. Totally. It's a real shame. It's a real, real shame. Man, I've got to pay more attention. There's 2 of them there. 3 of them, maybe. Ah, there's a HS trying to get through. Damn. One other thing that's worth mentioning now with all this other topic that I've been discussing is one's own heart, and what is the content of one's heart. So there's the idea that good and evil, or at least particularly evil, if people even deign to think about evil, because most people don't, but there's the notion that evil exists somewhere else, or evil is embodied in someone else or some other group or whatever, another nation, another people, another flag, whatever. The evil is somewhere exterior to the individual. One guy that survived the gulags, I'm trying to remember his name. You know the one I'm talking about? He wrote all the books and everything. Solzhenitsyn. Alexander, is it? Alexander Solzhenitsyn. He wasn't really a good guy in the beginning, and but somehow he ended up in the gulag, and he survived it all. He survived cancer, everything. One quote that he made quite a few famous quotes, and one quote that he made, and I'm going to paraphrase it here, is something like, this happened, this whole horrible thing that happened to Russia, communism, this happened, a lot of the reason why it happened is because everybody has the opportunity to reject evil, and it's the decision that they make. It's up to them to make the decision to reject it. So his notion in this quote that I'm trying to recall here was something very profound, is that evil has the potential to be in the heart of the individual, as opposed to something exterior, and it's up to the individual to reject it. And particularly in the aggregate, like we're talking about a whole population of a nation rejecting evil. Or accepting it. If a whole population of one nation accepts evil in their own heart, they accept it, you end up with something like communism, totalitarian mass death system. Again with the two LA5s, I got a hit on one of them though. So if I can paraphrase what Solzhenitsyn's saying about the evil that beset Russia in his time, he was saying the individual, I'm paraphrasing of course, the individual ought to look in the mirror when they're trying to find where the good and the evil is, because it's in everybody potentially. It's up to you to accept or to reject. You personally, you individually, and in the aggregate, in the tens of millions. Everyone's got to become a moral and ethical expert to prevent this kind of shit from happening. You got to get hip to these kind of concepts. It's really important. Got to take out those two LA5s, I think. There. An aircraft up ahead. One thing that I would say about people, even smart people, is that they can get thrown by the devil's shenanigans. Again, people in the aggregate, big mobs of people, big groups of people, nations, millions of people can get thrown by the shenanigans of the devil. People and nations can get led down the garden path by the shenanigans of the devil. Led down the garden path. It's happened so many times in history. The two quintessential examples of World War I and World War II, that's people being led down the garden path by the devil. Everybody in World War I should have found a way to say, no, I'm not doing that. No way, I'm not doing that. You know, everybody leading up to World War I should have found a way to say, no, I'm not doing it. No. It's hard. All of the things that are coercing people today about what's going on today, those things, those kind of coercive tactics were present at the beginning of World War I, and they were also present during World War II. Not just the white feather shame tactic, but so many other things too. Everybody was massively coerced to get into World War I. There were probably a few that, at least in the Commonwealth and the British Empire, that were able to to be a pacifist, like to say no. I think they might have had a right to say no. Oh damn it! I'm getting shot again. Oh well, let's go again. Yeah, people should have said no to World War I, definitely. I'm not sure if people in Germany had a choice to say no. I think they did though. The choice to say no is just no. Just don't do it. The guy who climbed Mount Everest, Hillary, right? Sir Edmund Hillary, maybe? I don't know. He had a brother who objected to World War II, didn't serve in World War II, and just stayed in New Zealand for the whole of World War II. So certainly in World War II, it was possible to say no. We're facing a pretty well identical situation now. It's not a war as such, but the outcome is the same. Mass death is on the horizon, and societal change as well. They say that war is the quickest way to enact policy changes that you could never get away with in civilian times, and once the war is over, the policies stay. And social change. If you want social change, have a war. You can make massive social change if you have a war. If you don't have a war, then your culture can stay. It can stay. It doesn't have to change. The idea of being able to say no, despite all of the coercion, all of the manipulation, all of the pressuring, all of the propaganda, all of the groupthink. You don't want to be the black sheep, you don't want to be the odd one out. Despite all of that, the ability to say no, no thank you, you can go and do what you want, but me, no thank you. The ability to say that at this time is paramount. Absolutely paramount. So, like, evil or the devil or whatever you want to call it has the ability, like a judo player, to take the public's emotions and to use the emotions which are a form of momentum, to throw the public, to trip them over. You see it time and time again. It just happens over and over again. So it's almost like the public is a herd of dumb sheep, and they can just be herded by predators or whatever just with ease. And it's really confounding. I'm not really sure if there's a solution to it. You just see the public falling for the narrative, this manufactured narrative. The public is falling for it over and over and over again. It's that old quote, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me, right? The public just continuously gets fooled over and over and over again. And like I said, the devil or evil, whatever you want to name the negative influence on people, it's really good, like a judo player. I know judo, right? So I'm good at flipping someone, and I know that you can trick someone by pushing them as hard as you can. And that when you push them, what are they going to do? They're going to resist, and they're going to come at you. And when you've got them in that position that they're coming at you because they think you're pushing them, you grab them and you pull them towards you and you flip them, and it's 100% effective. It never fails. You see that kind of judo flip maneuver done on the public by evil manipulation and coercion over and over and over again. I don't know what to do about it because it's just so obvious and people just fall for it every time, seemingly. Are people really that dumb that they can't see it? So keep that in mind. The devil is a judo player. And no, not me. I'm not the devil. I am a judo player though. But you know what I mean? I can recognize the devil's ability to use the momentum, that's the emotion of the public, against them. Once the public, either, and it can be either or, the public can have no emotion, which is apathy, and the devil can use that. The public can have their blood up and they can be angry or discontent or indignant. The devil can use that too. The devil gets them coming and going, like with ease, it seems. It's unfortunate. I don't know. Maybe they need to educate people in school or something. And on the topic of school, I think that if I had kids, I would not have them in a school. There's practically no way that I would have my kids in a school. Unless it was a Steiner school, the Waldorf school, maybe, maybe. But apart from that, no school. Absolutely not. Homeschooling, yes, and homeschooling groups, but school, no frickin' way, man. No way I'm putting my kids in a school, or a school bus, for that matter. No frickin' way. Terrible, terrible result. Buildings. Yay. Airfield conditions will change. Yay. Let's see, how close are we to losing? It's about even so far, surprisingly. So basically, guys, in one of the ways to summarize this is, like always, as per old times, you and I were trapped in a world where there's the forces of good and evil, and we're in a battle basically between good and evil. That's from a top level perspective. That's one way to look at it. And trust me, you can't win this battle physically. It's in your heart and in your mind. And you can't win this battle by following a leader or relying on a team to do it for you. The one that can help you, the only one that can help you, is the one staring at you in the mirror. The one looking back at you in the mirror, that's the one that can help you, no one else. There's no politician that's going to save you. There's no politician that's going to come back and save you. If they come back, they still won't save you. The guy or the gal looking at you in the mirror, that's the one that can help you. And I think that's the one that can help the world in the aggregate by the tens of millions or the hundreds of millions. One of the problems guys like me struggle with is if I'm hip to all this stuff, if I have some insight on this kind of stuff, and yet in the Western world that I've grown up in, it's been so harsh. There hasn't been too many opportunities. A lot of us struggle with the notion of, why should I help? Seriously, why should I help? It's a good question, right? I don't actually have a full answer for it, but just the notion, I guess it's a kind of an invitation to victim status. Why should I help? Or apathy or something. Why should I help society? If society is in such a bad state, why should I help it? You know, if I'm surrounded by Karens and narcissists and just generally rotten, nasty people, and that's what constitutes the bulk of my society, why should I help? It's a good question, right? I'm not going to say that you should. You should make up your own mind. I haven't fully made up my mind. You know, maybe I should just walk away. Let the whole thing crumble on its own. It seems like it's going to anyway. I'll be just fine on my own. Maybe I should just walk away. What obligation do I have? Or, you know, I mean, I feel like I want to help society, but why should I? A lot of guys are in my boat. We've seen just how negative our society is, and particularly to us. And we think, why should I help? It's a good question, right? Why should I help? It's sort of an expectancy theory. I've seen with a lot of my friends, they just can't find a girlfriend, or if they can get a girlfriend, they have no real obligation or desire or expectation to marry. And then those that do marry, often they get horribly divorce raped in the family court, and their lives are totally screwed, totally ruined. And you look at this backdrop of your society and you say, shouldn't I just walk away? Should I try and improve things, or should I just walk away? It's a good question, right? There's like a theory, expectancy theory, which makes some sense, which is like if you expect to succeed at something, you'll be more likely to put some effort into it. If you expect that you cannot succeed, you'll be less likely to put effort into that endeavor, or you might not even try, you might not even attempt it. Expectancy theory. Western civilization is subject to that right now. You know, it's hard to see how it can be fully fixed. And so if that's the case, why bother? Why even try? I just got lucky. There was a LA5 pursuing me, I think, or a yak. Hi. There's a ton of them. Our guys are up high too, though. No luck at all. Oh well, let's bail. I think if I can put it succinctly, in Australia we used to call ourselves the lucky country. In America the equivalent, I guess, is you guys have the American dream. And as I was a kid growing up, we definitely had, like, arguably, from my point of view growing up here, Australia was arguably the best country in the world. It was just so nice. 80s, 90s, just so nice. And now it's unrecognizable from its former condition. Really changed. So yeah, to try and put it succinctly, the American dream, it was certainly obtainable at one point for a lot of people. But for guys of my generation, it seems that in the West, if you like, the American dream has been unobtainable for the bulk of us. And I think there's the perception of that, and I think it's mostly true. And that has an impact on people's expectancy of success and failure. And it has an impact on people's decisions that they make in their lives. It has an impact. It has a profound impact. The notion that you can't achieve the dream any longer, that has an impact on the whole of society and on individuals as well. So then, going back to sort of one of my earlier points, if you can't achieve the dream and you've stopped trying perhaps, or you don't try very much, if your society has become a place that has perhaps treated you harshly in terms of it's blocked you in a number of ways from achieving the dream, if that's the way it is for you, then the big question is, what obligation do you have to help your society that has quote unquote treated you thus? It's a good question, right? And you could look at it a number of ways. You could say, well, I'm going to try my hardest to try and reform and fix my society so that it can become good, so that I and myriad other guys can achieve the dream. That's the high road, I guess. You might have some success in that. It's probably the answer, actually. I don't know, but it could be the answer. Other option that stands out is just do nothing, be apathetic, stand by and let it all collapse. It's going to anyway, right? Just don't get in the way, just stand out of the way of it. Let it do its thing, just disengage from society so that it can't hurt you. And be apathetic and non-effectual, but probably safe to a degree. But you'd be in an increasingly unstable society. So there's two options there that are opposite to one another. And there's other options too. Perhaps a bit of both. Perhaps accept that it's collapsing but try and help anyway. But again, why should you help a society that hasn't really helped you? I know that sounds ungrateful, but a lot of guys in my generation, shitty jobs, no family, no wife, or if they've got a wife, they've been divorced, and that's a horror show in its own right. Okay, so then to tie in another concept of this, there's kind of like biblical prophecy, isn't there? The Bible has a beginning and it has an end. The Bible has a beginning and an end, and the end of the Bible is the end of the age, if I'm not mistaken. What do we got here? FW. Hey, take it easy. Arguably, we're at the end of the age right now. If you want to tie in biblical prophecy to what we see throughout history and up until today, arguably this is the end of the age. In terms of the movement of the planets and all that, they say that it's the end of the age around this time. It could be. It really could be. And so there's a kind of a concept of fatalism. If it's the fate of the world to conform to a prophecy in the Bible, why should and the prophecy involves a lot of bad before the good comes. When the bad does perceivably come in your day and age, should you try and stop it? Because if it's biblical prophecy, maybe you should just let it all play out. Do nothing to stop it. Because it's prophecy, right? It's fated, right? You can't do anything about it. It's in the book. These are big questions. I'm not saying I have an answer for them. I'm just articulating them. They might be helpful to you. Away. Society's in trouble. It may or may not have treated you well, depending on your generation and your socio-economic circumstance and so on. According to that, you might feel social capital indebted to society to a greater or lesser extent. According to that, you might have a different level from non-existent to very high. Somewhere on that spectrum, you might have a different level of motivation or impulse, inner drive to help society. You might have conflicting opinions, like I certainly do. My true feeling is I should help society, but it's such a basket case. It hasn't always treated me well. Why should I? So I have these conflicting opinions. I think a lot of guys in my generation have that. It's a question to grapple with. problem with times like this is that popular movements develop, which is fine. They're organic, they're born of sentiment of many people feeling the same about a polemic issue, an issue that affects everybody. But usually what happens is when the sentiment in the movement gets to a certain point, evil comes in and usurps the movement and misdirects it and leads it down the garden path. You see that happening in time and time again. You could see it in Germany in the post-World War I period. There was a genuine movement of people in Germany that didn't want communism in their country. They didn't want that in their country, fair enough. And then Hitler comes along, subverts that movement, and leads the country onto a really bad path. Same thing with communism in Russia in 1917. World War I, the Tsar's unpopular. Things had been getting better and better under the Tsar. The economy was going great. People had, I think the word is emancipated. Serfs were emancipated. They could own their own farms. They could make profit from their hard work. The productivity of Russian agriculture was going through the roof. I think Russia, before communism took over under the Tsar, I think Russia had the highest wheat production in the whole world, higher than the United States, the highest wheat production, because they were really getting their economy happening. But World War I really wrecked the people's confidence in their current situation. And I guess there would have been a popular movement or a sentiment, hey, we need change, we need reform. We need better control over our own lives. We need things to be more fair. Sounds good, right? And it was a popular sentiment. It was a legit feeling of a lot of people. Things need reform in Tsarist Russia. At some point that gets usurped and subverted by the commies. And you saw what they did with it afterwards. So that's really worrying. You can see that happening today. With a lot of popular sentiments today, you can see those popular sentiments building across the West. You can see them on the streets in the capital city of my state right now. You can see the popular sentiment they're building. The thing that's so worrying is that history shows us every single time some bad guys come in there, evil comes in there, the devil's forces come in there and usurp the popular movement, harness that, like a judo player, harness that energy of the popular sentiment and lead people down the garden path. It happens every frickin' time. It's probably going to happen very soon with the current popular wellspring of sentiment that we see on the streets. I think part of it is that people need to get hip to the concept of the false flag. Australia lost their rights, a lot of rights, in the mid-90s. There was a false flag shooting in Tasmania called Port Arthur. It was in 1996. A lot of rights in Australia were lost because of laws that came in as a result of Port Arthur 1996. So this is something that people should be aware of so that they can be less susceptible to it, so that the next time something bad happens that shocks the public, they don't accept the plethora of new laws that get proposed directly after the shocking thing. Because, you know, the problem, reaction, solution thing is one of those things that's leading the West down the garden path. It's really bad. It's really, really bad. Long story short, if some great calamity happens, like COVID-19 or something like that, people should be aware that that can be used to pass laws that are not in their best interest. It would be better to have a moratorium on the passing of laws directly after a bad thing like a pandemic, so that people can sit back and go, hey, something bad happened, but maybe let's chill out a bit with the legislation and just let it sit for a few years and do nothing. That's probably the best thing to do. If tens of millions of people can figure that out, maybe we can avert real disaster, like Russia 1917, like Germany in the 20s and 30s. Because there were popular movements, they did have genuine sentiment, but they were usurped, and you can see the result. Just checking the chat, horsemen, sheep herded by the media and government. Yeah, that's like a huge component of it. The schools, yeah. I learnt in school, and I'm not smart, but what I learnt in school, I think I could have learnt in 6 months. So anyways, I mean, I guess what I'm seeing here is that the general public, by the hundreds of million, individually and as a collective, are just so susceptible to manipulation and coercion, particularly coercion. It's such a worry. Indoctrinated in school. Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah. That bunker's destroyed already. What else have we got? Ah, we got some trucks there. I'll go for the trucks. About these. They're all destroyed. Let's get those trucks. Again. Oh yeah, I got one. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Where are those damn trucks? I've lost them. They're here somewhere, but where? There. Surely I got one. Ah, we got a P39 somewhere. There it is. Two trucks. Alright, let's look at the map here. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Well, it's even. There's something to be said for that. I'll go back here. If possible. No, I can't. No A3s. I think one of the ultimate top-down ways to look at the scenario of the world right now, and basically this is a timeless concept that applies to historical times as well, is there needs to be some way for people everywhere to not be tricked by evil, to not be tricked by evil, because evil is so tricky. People have it's been demonstrated time and time again that people everywhere are just so susceptible to being tricked in a myriad of different ways. Alright, we've defeated that fortified area. Now we're... winning somehow. What have we got here? What do we got here? What do we got here? It's a 110. He's dropping his 50s and he's returning. And if I was him, I'd keep going north to the train. So this is a warehouse on my side of the lines. There's some activity there. There's a lot of activity here. A hurricane. Was a twin that was coming in from the north, from the west. have here? It's a yak. Ah, splat. Perhaps this will be the last flight, I think. Alright, let's go for the last flight. Try and make it to the enemy train, and I'll go via my warehouse and protect the warehouse on the way to the train, to the enemy train. Long distance, but we have a fast plane and it's winter time, so it'll be even faster. Which team is winning? We have 2 left and they have 2 left. 2 versus 2. Enemy is complete. Well, that answers the question, I guess. Somehow they destroyed the warehouse that I'm heading towards. Where are they though? There they are. Oh boy, another loss. The 109. And what do we have here? Got a FW chasing something. Yak. Just got him. Pity they didn't save the target though. Alright, do I go to the fortified area or the railroad? They're about the same distance. Probably go fortified area. I don't know. Don't know. I guess so. But then no one's attacking the railroad. We need to destroy both their targets. Heck, I'll go to the fortified. Just as I arrive, it's over. Well, that is the end of the stream. Thanks so much for coming along. Like, share, subscribe. Consider what I've discussed, those key points. I think it's really important for everyone to take on board the notion of not being a victim, and all the other stuff too that I discussed. I don't have a solution, but I mean, there's some food for thought, right? Yeah, that's it, guys. Like, share, and subscribe. And see you next time. Bye for now.